1 week of spring practice is in the books, and it's time for another West Virginia football roster update here on the Country Roads webcast. Let's go! What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Jordan Cruz back here with the Country Roads webcast. And before I get into this video, I just want to give you guys a quick reminder. If you would, do us a favor, hit that like button, give us a thumbs up on this video. It helps not only this video's performance, but also future videos' performances here on the channel. And if you're a WVU fan and you haven't already, be sure hit that subscribe button. Helps us and it helps you, as it helps get more of this Mountaineer sports content out to Mountaineer Nation. Having said that, let's get into it. All right, let's take a look here. This is kind of the impetus for this March 28th roster update here on the Country Roads webcast as we continue to try and update the roster throughout the offseason as more scholarship players are added to the roster. And this is one I think we've all been waiting on for a little bit now. Keyshawn Cobb finally added to the university's official roster. Had told you guys in the past, I knew that he was enrolled at the university. Wasn't sure what the holdup was. Most of the other transfers had an announcement in a press release there on the university's official website and then were added to the university's roster. Keyshawn Cobb never had that press release and hadn't been on the university's roster as of the last update here on the Country Roads webcast, but here in about the week's time since then, he has finally been added to the university's official roster. Neil Brown mentioned him in his press conference yesterday, and actually the position that he's working at is a little bit of a surprise. Talk about that more in a second, but it is great to see and know that Keyshawn Cobb finally added to the university's official roster, and he is there working with the team in the spring at the safety position, the transfer coming over from Buffalo. That being said, let's take a look at exactly which position he's working at this spring, as well as another position change that was announced in Neil Brown's latest press conference that prompted another roster update from us here at the Country Roads webcast. All right, here we are. Those of you that have been following along throughout the offseason are probably familiar with this document that I'm keeping up with the scholarship players on West Virginia's football roster as we head into fall camp until we finally get the official roster there. Once we get into the fall, throughout the spring, of course, there has been changes, and there will be more in the summer once the next portal window opens up in May. I'm not going to go completely through this. Of course, you can just see it visually as I share it on the screen. I'm just going to scroll through it as I talk and get to the positions that we have updated since our last one. The first one actually coming here on the offensive line. I believe they're going to try and work Doug Nestor in at right tackle this season. We know he started there last season in game one, but then the injury to Jordan White made them change that and him go back to right guard. But I think so far in the spring, you've seen Jaquay Hubbard at right guard and Nestor at right tackle, with Brandon Yates playing center, with them resting Zach Frazier for a lot of this spring. You've seen starting offensive linemen of Wyatt Milam, Thomas Remick, Brandon Yates, Jaquay Hubbard, and Doug Nestor. And I think Brandon Yates could serve as the backup at both center and right guard, and Doug Nestor looks to possibly be the team's starting right tackle this season. Personally, I think this plays into Nico Marchiol potentially being the starting quarterback. They want somebody they can really trust protecting what will be his blind side there at the right tackle position. But the two safeties that really prompted this roster update as I scroll through the defensive side here for our March 28th update here on the Country Roads webcast, the thing that really prompted it, of course, was finally the aforementioned addition of Key Cobb to the roster, the Buffalo transfer. Interestingly enough, when he was brought up by Neil Brown in his press conference yesterday, though, we all thought he would be a spear right away. Who knows, he may still factor in there in the future. But right now, Neil Brown mentioned that he is playing deep safety for the Mountaineers. So I've got him positioned here at cat safety along with Marcus Floyd and Caleb Coleman now, instead of at spear where I thought I would plug him in once he was finally added to this roster. Also, interestingly enough, another safety that had been working there last year for the Mountaineers, Hershey McLaurin, has been moved and is going to be getting some work at spear this spring, Neil Brown mentioned. So I've also made that move here on the roster to reflect that. Hershey McLaurin still limited with injury, but he has been working with the spears, and the three spears that Neil Brown mentioned were Hershey McLaurin, Lance Dixon, and Raleigh Collins, while Keyshawn Cobb works as a deep safety. So there's a look at the updates there now as we continue to try and update this roster throughout the off season. This is the March 28th version of the West Virginia football roster. So there you have it, Mountaineer Nation. On this roster update, we get the addition of Buffalo transfer Keyshawn Cobb finally to the official roster, as well as a bit of a position swap. Hershey McLaurin moving to the spear position, and Keyshawn Cobb, as we learned, playing a deep safety. Kind of surprising, as we all kind of had him penciled in as West Virginia's starting spear safety this season, but we'll see how that plays out moving forward. But as we know, that's kind of how the roster looks today on March 28th as we continue throughout the offseason. Scholarship player-wise, like I said, no preferred walk-ons ones on there yet, or any players that will be coming in the summer. They'll be added on future roster updates here on the Country Roads webcast. But let us know down in the comments what you think of the West Virginia football roster as it stands today. Are you excited about Keyshawn Cobb being added? And what do you think about Hershey McLaurin getting some work at the spear position when he comes back from his injury? Anything you want to respond to, please let us know down there. We really appreciate the interaction as we continue to try and grow the Country Roads webcast community throughout Mountaineer Nation. Having said that, as always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.